Let's go.
World champs, baby.
Welcome back to the Spicy Take Sports podcast. This is going to be an all Braves edition. As y'all know, me and Colton are huge Braves fans, and taking a couple days just to kind of let it sit in a little bit, because I think it still is kind of hard to believe that we actually did it, but the Braves freaking won the World Series.
Truly amazing. It was my first time seeing my team win a championship, and we literally did a podcast. Our last podcast was about a week or two ago, and we talked about, our biggest moments in sports as fans, and this one for me is easily number one, 110%, no doubt.
Yeah, for me, this is.
Would you say the same thing? This is top of your list?
This has to be the top of my list. I mean, my situation with this team is a little bit different than what it's been. I mean, before I was always a Braves fan, but never really. I kind of cared about him a little bit in like 2010, 2011, 2012. And I kind of stopped caring as much after the whole infield fly rule against the Cardinals. And that ended Chipper's career, because part of the reason I was a big Braves fan was because of Chipper Jones. Then I was kind of keeping up with the team and all that during the rebuild. It's kind of ugly. And then, but never was truly as much into it as it was other sports. And then you moved to Georgia after high school in 2018. Yeah. Well, 2017, 2018. And kind of got back into it. As you got closer, you got more into it, and I got into it as well. And I paid more attention in 2018 than I had in a long time. First year of the division wins. And then 2019 got a lot more into it with Josh Donaldson. I was always a fan of to begin with. Made it even cooler when he was with the Braves. Last year got really into him. Almost watched all 60 games. It was only a 60-game season, so it's a lot easier to do that. And then this year, kind of had a lot of hope into this year's team. My wife started caring about the Braves last year in the playoffs. She started watching them with me, so it made me care even more. Gave me an excuse to actually watch a sports game without having to worry about anything, because I know she'll watch it with me. And then, lo and behold, T-Mobile Tuesdays offers a free year subscription to MLB TV, which I was always thinking about buying it. I was thinking about buying it in 2020 and 2019, but never put the bullet when it was given to me free. Took advantage of it, I'll say that. So took advantage of it, watched about 160 of 162 games this year, at least parts of every game. And the only two I didn't watch at all was the two of the three Mets games at the end of the year. It didn't matter at all. So really experienced a lot of the ups and downs of this year's team, like more than I would ever imagine. This team was kind of the most roller coaster team I've ever seen in my entire life. And just to see it in the way it did is just fantastic.
Yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster ride, which makes that championship all more worth it in the end. And next time we go to a game, we get to see that red 2021 banner up there on the pole in right center field. It's just gonna be such a cool experience, and I want to go to that opening day game so bad now.
Yeah, me too. First I want to, before we do anything about the postseason, I kind of want to just walk through what this year was like. I mean, it's been talked about from other sports shows and stuff, but I think from a Braves fan perspective versus coming from a national media perspective, you kind of get a bigger idea of what it was like. You can tell me if I've missed something from what I'm looking at. I'm pretty sure I haven't, but you can let me know if I have or not. So spring training because last year obviously blew a 3-1 lead to the Dodgers in the NLCS. Weird year with no off days, no home field advantage. Weird year. Still was disappointing last year for sure. But we come into this year in spring training really excited, honestly. I was beyond excited to see what this team could do, especially knowing that we were that close the year before when we weren't supposed to be that close after losing Donaldson. Well, coming to spring training this year, and the hope behind most people, especially considering how Pache played in the playoffs last year, was your outfield would be Marcell Ozuna, Ronald Acuna, and Christian Pache. That was kind of the hope between a lot of people, because once Duval got hurt last year in the playoffs and Pache came up, and Pache played very well in center field last year in the playoffs, made you kind of look forward to see what he could do this year. Well, let's just say beginning of the season doesn't go the way we plan. Start out 0-4 and have a play that Alec Bohm still hasn't touched home plate. Then you have all that happening. Then the Braves get back to 500, and from there until game 107 or 108, they're literally bouncing from 500 to 2 games under 500 or 1 game under 500 and back to 500, but never past the 500 mark. So it was extremely frustrating coming from being a game away from the World Series last year to not being able to get over 500. The Mets and Phillies were leading the division versus the whole start of the year. That being said, the Mets and the Nationals as well led it for a bit. That being said, the Mets, Phillies, and Nationals, none of them ran away with it. Got a big enough lead to begin with. Then the Braves trials start really hitting them. First injury that really happens is d'Arnaud breaks his thumb. Didn't know how big of an injury that would truly be until we realized that we'd have to use 8 catchers this year because d'Arnaud's injury, including a Kevin Smith experience, which didn't work very well.
And Alex Jackson that ended up getting us back, our boy from Louisville. We got our boy back from Louisville, Kentucky, Duval.
Yep. I mean, we had some interesting experiences with catcher. Then we have Ian Anderson get hurt, which that was a problem. At the beginning of the year in spring training, Mike Soroka got hurt, which we thought he was going to be back this year, and he wasn't.
We had one of our up-and-coming pitchers punch a bench and broke his hand.
Yeah, the one bright spot that had happened so far the year, up to that point this year, had been Huascar Noah coming out and being a surprise. I mean, the guy was pitching well and he was hitting grand slams, but then he punches a wall in his first bad start and breaks his hand and out for 3 months. Ian Anderson has a forearm injury, out for 2 more months. And if anything couldn't get worse, also Marcell Ozuna breaks his finger. And then in the time he's out with his broken finger, he beats his girlfriend and is out for the year. And then if things couldn't get worse, Ronald Acuna Jr. out for the year against Miami. Well, I just want to get before we get into actually the second half of the year, which is the positive part of the year, I just want to get your perspective on what were you thinking when we're 52 and 55 and our best player that would have kind of carried the whole team to that point is out for the year.
Well, at the time, Acuna was, looking like he was on his way to MVP season. I mean, it looked like we were going to have back-to-back MVPs, undoubtedly. He was playing so good. Defense definitely has improved a ton. And he was just looking like a different kind of cat out there for sure. And for him to get hurt the way he did, and then the Marlins have the audacity to go out there and I'm pretty sure on their Twitter page, they're talking about their infield home run in the park home run.
Hit inside the park home run.
But that was just, I don't know, it was really tough. I remember, having a phone call after that, and we were just talking about, I think our season's over. 99 times out of 100 or, 999 times out of 1,000 or probably even higher than that, to be completely honest. Your team does not go out there and get the studs that you do. And that will probably lead in the next part of our discussion.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Acuna thing was – my mindset was I've got the MLB TV and it's enjoyable to watch some baseball for me. So I'm going to keep watching the games, but I thought the season was over. My exact words were, I think the season's probably over right now, but I've got this anyways. Might as well just watch some games.
All right.
I mean, the guy was on track to win the NL MVP, and the team was awful. The team was 3 games under 500, but they were only 5 games back in the division, which leads to the trade deadline. You got you're 5 games back in the division. because the Mets and the Phillies just couldn't grab a hold of it. Jacob deGrom gets hurt for New York. Ends up not actually pitching the rest of the year, even though it was supposed to be a minor injury. He doesn't pitch the rest of the year for New York. The Phillies didn't grasp a hold. The Nationals sold off. So it was virtually down to the Braves, Mets, and Phillies, though. The Braves hadn't fallen out of it yet. Even though they hadn't passed 500 yet, they hadn't fallen out of it yet. Right after Acuna gets hurt 2 weeks before the trade deadline, they trade their top first base prospect in Bryce Ball and get Jock Peterson. At the time, I was excited to get Jock Peterson, knowing that he had just won a World Series with the Dodgers, and he was always a good locker room guy, fun-spirited guy. But I will say I was kind of nervous about giving up Bryce Ball, because at that point, with your team under 500, and Freddie Freeman a free agent coming up, I was questioning giving up the top first base prospect in your system. And what were you thinking when that happened?
Yeah, it's a little questionable. If you're looking at it from the perspective we were at the time, where you're under 500, your season doesn't look really like you should have much hope in it anyways. And you go away Bryce Ball, who's the number 1 overall first base prospect in your entire minors. And what if it doesn't pan out? What if Jock Peterson comes out and is a dud, and he's not the playoff hero and locker room clubhouse guy with pearls on? He doesn't do all this stuff and he doesn't pan out. I mean, AA kind of looks like a not so smart guy, I guess is the best, most rated G way to put that. Yeah, it's just it takes guts really to do what AA did. It takes guts, and it was just at the time I kind of questioned that too. But I mean, they needed something in that locker room. When Jock Peterson got there, him and Steven Vogt said this team is like dead in the water.
Yeah, I agree.
At the time,
I was excited. I mean, there was 2 ways you could have looked at it, and I saw it from both perspectives. You could have seen it as they've got some sort of assurance from Freddie Freeman he's coming back, or you could look at it as we better win or we're going to lose Freddie Freeman, and we're not going to have a first baseman to take the spot. So either way, you make the trade for Jock. Kind of trying to change their locker room perspective around at that point. Gives a little bit of a. One thing I will say with the Jock trade, even if you look at his stats, he wasn't amazing throughout the regular season. He was okay, better than we had. I mean, we were starting Abraham Almonte, Orlando Arcia, and Guillermo Heredia as our starting outfield. As great as those guys were and as admirable of a job as they were doing, those aren't going to be your World Series winning outfielders. Just saying, or even playoff bound outfielders. But you get Jock kind of infused a little bit in the locker room. You get back to about 500 under the trade deadline. Trade deadline day comes. You're within 4 games of the playoffs, within 4 games of division lead. At the time, you're tied with the Phillies for second. Mets are 4 games ahead in the division lead. And Alex Anthopoulos does what was very bold at the time. You had a lot of Braves fans saying we should sell, give Freddie a chance to go win a championship somewhere, and try to go back after him in the offseason. Trade Charlie Morton, give him a chance to win a ring somewhere. But then you had the other side of Braves fans that we were both on. We both thought, why would you sell? You're only 4 games back in the division.
Yeah, you were too close at a time to sell.
Exactly.
Way too close.
And the Mets have been consistently chokers, and the Phillies have always been around 500 for the last 4 or 5 years, even after they thought it'd be good. But either way,
Sorry, what were you gonna say? You're going.
Yeah, so trade deadline comes. First move that comes in, Braves trade back for Adam Duvall. Me and you were both excited about that. I really believe that if he doesn't get hurt last year in the NLCS, we beat the Dodgers in 5 games.
He's that much of an impact. We saw how much impact Adam Duvall was, even in that World Series. I mean, we didn't win Game 5, but that Grand Slam was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just working at that game, being at that game, that Grand Slam. I've never heard of baseball. Mary, I even heard a stadium louder than that. That was crazy when you hit that Grand Slam. Like there was reporters said they felt like that place is gonna collapse.
Yeah, it sounded like it on TV too. But so that was the first trade they make. Second trade they make is they make a trade for, what was it first? It was Rosario first, if I'm not mistaken. Rosario.
Yeah,
after
Pablo
Duval,
for Rosario.
Trade Pablo Sandoval, who early in the year was the Panda, fun player to root for. Started out the season with like 3 or 4 pinch hit home runs, but then was like 1 for 24 in his pinch hit appearances since then. He was going to get cut no matter what. And they ended up trading Pablo Sandoval for Eddie Rosario, and the Indians eat part of Eddie Rosario's salary too. So versus a salary dump trade, and the Braves get Eddie Rosario, who at the time was hurt. I will say I was sad that we got rid of the Panda, but I will say that trade was a no-brainer. I mean, Rosario 2 years ago hit 30 home runs in Minnesota. I mean, it was a good trade. And then you make the last second moves after the deadline seemed like it was over. And there's a lot of Braves fans saying, why didn't you make any bullpen moves, Alex Anthopoulos? Somehow Alex Anthopoulos pulls a trade off that goes through 30 minutes after the trade deadline. Not just 1, but 2. You trade for Richard Rodriguez for Bryce Wilson, who Richard Rodriguez was balling in Pittsburgh before that. So I love that trade. And then the last second trade, you trade a middle of the line reliever prospect, pick up Jorge Solaire. Solaire, I don't think anyone really knew Jorge Solaire was on the market to begin with. I had not heard any rumors about him. He had been having a rough year in Kansas City, but in 2019, Jorge Solaire hit 48 home runs in a season. So when I saw Jorge Solaire been traded for, I'm like, I love this. You virtually went from having Guillermo Heredia, Abraham Almonte, and Orlando Arcia in your outfield, to having Jock Peterson, Adam Duvall, Jorge Solaire, and Eddie Rosario coming back from injury in a month. And you added
not many GMs will go out there and, I mean, yeah, they trade away Pablo Sandoval, but not many people will go out there and trade for a guy that can't play for a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah, I mean,
it was worth it.
It was definitely worth it. I mean, we'll get to that in a little bit, but definitely it was one of the best trade deadlines you'd ever ask for, because you got guys that have had proven track records in the league, and you gave up guys that were not part of your future or present plans anyways. But
there's on Twitter, there's a lot of people saying that they should build a statue of Anthopoulos outside of Tourist Park.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's
because of the trade deadline.
But it's the perfect trade deadline.
I mean, I can't think of a time in the sport where a trade deadline was that crucial for a team. I mean, since earlier I'm trying to think of the former U.S. major sports, and I can't think of one off the top of my head. I mean, maybe there's been a few, but none that come straight to my mind immediately.
There's never been one you virtually remake half your team, your whole outfield. You make all those trades to remake your whole entire outfield. But I mean, at the time, I remember saying I thought that the Braves had one of the best trade deadlines of the year. I thought they were second though, because the Dodgers, the almighty Dodgers, had Max Scherzer and Trey Turner in the same trade. That obviously got all the headlines. So the Braves came under the radar with those trades. I mean, none of the trades were really big time trades, but they got solid players on the team. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you keep going.
I'm saying, so we lead from that trade deadline, and still there's obviously skepticism. Should we made all these trades? Well, the night of the trade deadline, Adam Duvall gets traded and somehow ends up playing that same night for Atlanta. I've never seen that before, where someone gets traded and plays the same night for the team, but he did. But you have the Braves kind of start looking like a completely different team following that. We don't have Rosario yet, but Solaire, Duvall, Jock, definitely a lot bigger upgrade than we had before. They start getting playing pretty solid. And then the Braves hit their stride in the perfect time. They have a 9-game streak of playing the Orioles, the Nationals, and the Marlins. The Marlins have always given the Braves a little bit of trouble, but the Braves needed to have a really good road stretch there. And they went on a road trip with all 3 of those and went 9-0. Jorge Solaire was showing out. Ends up getting put at the leadoff when the guy was a slugger his whole career, and he sometimes ends up being a leadoff hitter, and it works, which is weird. But that put the Braves in first place, in which they didn't actually relinquish first place the rest of the year.
I didn't feel like anyone else even got really close. I mean, I know the Phillies were relatively close towards the end of the year. They were, 1 game back at one point. When you and I were at that Nationals game with Madison and Elisa, they were about a game back.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
which is kind of crazy to think about. That was late September.
Yeah. I mean, they never gave up the lead. The Phillies got close multiple times. The Mets fell off. Injuries caught up with them, plus the Mets caught up with them. But throughout the season, the rest of the season, the Braves start winning some big-time games. They have some easy stretches. They have some tough stretches. The biggest stretch of the Braves season, in my opinion, was the last 2 weeks of the year before the Mets series. You have the Giants, no, you have the Diamondbacks, the Giants, and the Padres. And then you have the Phillies. You win 3 or 4 against the Diamondbacks to keep a 2.5-game lead. You only win 1 of 3 against the Giants in a game which Will Smith blows a save in the 9th inning. End up losing the game, which ended up losing you the series 2-1. But you still have a 1.5-game lead because the Phillies didn't win out in their series. You sweep the Padres, but you lose the suspended game from before. And the Phillies had swept their series, so you're a 1/2 game up going into the Phillies series.
I feel like this was just kind of a side note. I feel like when Will Smith blew that game against the Giants, might have been the last game that he really underperformed the rest of the season. Am I wrong, or is that?
It was that one, and then I think the game that really changed Will Smith's season around was against the Padres. To try to sweep the Padres in the series. The Braves have a 1-run lead in the 9th inning, and Will Smith walks the bases loaded, nobody out, and then strikes out the side to save the game. If there wasn't a Will Smith start, and if there wasn't a Will Smith save opportunity that summed the whole season up, he gave it to us there. Obviously had a lot of hate throughout the year. And had some hate in that game too. Gave everyone heart attacks. But he pulled that one out. And from there on, he never gave a run the rest of the year.
I may have been guilty of that too, but to give him credit, he was
every Braves fan was guilty. The only person that stuck with Will Smith the whole time was Brian Snitker. Only guy. Either way, you get into that Phillies series with a 1/2 game lead, and then you go out and sweep them. If there was any moment that showed, in my opinion, that this Braves team was different, is they saw the opportunity in front of them and they took advantage of it. They didn't let it linger there to where they could blow it. They went out there and they took advantage of it. And they ended up winning the NL East when everyone had counted them out anyways.
Yeah, they were counted out with half a season to go.
I mean, I remember going to that last week of the year with that Phillies series only up a 1/2 game, barely only up a 1/2 game. A lot of people were thinking the Phillies were going to win that series and we're going to end up winning the division. I mean, there's no doubt that there's no doubt that could have been a very big opportunity.
We lost 2 games the rest of the year, and I think one of those 2 was when we played the Mets, and we already had a clinch, so we just kind of threw our C team out there and still almost beat the Mets.
Either way, we get into the playoffs, Braves, Brewers, and the NLDS. Braves really benefit there from the way the playoff format is. Even though they had the worst record of any playoff team, they get the 3 seed because they won their division, while the Dodgers at 106 wins has to play a wild card game against the Cardinals, who had won 17 straight games. But
That's baseball.
it's baseball for you. But the Braves beat the Brewers pretty handily. Lose game 1, in which game 1 could have easily went Atlanta's way, but they missed a lot of opportunities. It felt like the typical Braves choking a playoff opportunity away. But then games 2, 3, and then game 4, Freddie Freeman with his playoff signature moment up to that point, the 8th inning homer off of Josh Hader.
I mean, the call, as Lily says, Freddie Freeman left the yard. That's really was the call on the play. And I remember I was totally right behind that when that happened. And up to that point, that was the loudest I ever heard this baseball stadium up to that exact point. But that changed as the World Series came around. But that was – I remember thinking to myself about an inning before that, I'm like, Freddie or someone's going to have to come up with a clutch hit here. Like, it's tied 4-4 going into the top of the 8th.
With Josh
He's going to have to do something.
Josh Hader of all guys, too.
Yeah, Hader's just, how consistent he is.
He's so nasty. I mean,
he's got the good stuff and he's consistent. So your odds of hitting that home run, unless you're Freddie Freeman, you have a great chance. Even Freddie, I mean,
that was his first home run to a lefty given up in a year and a half. It's crazy.
Which is just.
But Freddie goes deep against Hader. I was at game 3 when Jock hit the 3-run homer. I mean, Jock Peterson up to that point was going in that NLDS was 3 for 3 with 2 home runs and a single, and then just Jock Peterson helped lead the Braves to win that series. So that's one of your additions at the trade deadline that came
in Jocktober.
Jocktober,
yeah. Jocktober.
In that time, pearls become a thing.
When we talked about this earlier, but he was throwing them out at the parade. He had I think he had like 1 or 200, like maybe 1 to 200 pearls in the bag. He was just throwing them out to the crowd. So
as I was going into that playoff game that I went to game 3, I would actually have bought pearls. Like that's the type I went before the game and bought pearls because they hadn't been selling them yet. So I mean, that's the type of he made a little bit of a thing there. So Jock Peterson, the first guy that really shows out in the playoffs of those trade acquisitions. Then the Dodgers come, the big bad mighty Dodgers. They end up beating the Giants, who they lost the division by a game to. But big moment in game 5, instead of keeping Scherzer for game 1 of the NLCS, they have him close out game 5 of the NLDS. Which I didn't understand. They hadn't used Kenley Jansen or Blake Trinan yet. A little questionable, but they did it anyways. So Atlanta and the Dodgers series, Atlanta actually ends up having home field advantage because baseball.
Because baseball. That's the only way to explain something along those lines, how an 88-win team has home field advantage over a 106-win team. It's just baseball. That's the answer.
Do I think it should be that way? No, but it is. So just take advantage of it. Braves game 1. Dodgers to pitch a bullpen game. Braves pitch Max Fried. Max doesn't have his best stuff, but he still gets out 6 innings, 2 runs, good baseball, good pitching. The Dodgers bullpen does a very good game too, because that bullpen is just absolutely stacked. But it's 2-2 in the bottom of the 9th. In the top of the 9th, Will Smith gives up a single to Chris Taylor and then a hard hit single to Cody Bellinger, in which Chris Taylor, with 2 outs, with Mookie Betts coming up to bat, Chris Taylor, instead of just stopping at second or going all the way to third, once Jock Peterson picks it up, he gets stuck between in a rundown.
It was so weird.
It was such a weird moment because you don't expect the Dodgers of all teams to make those kind of mistakes. But there it happens. Braves tag him out, and they get out of the jam. And in that bottom of the 9th, Ozzie Albies base hit, stolen base, Austin Riley, walk off, win game.
Walk off.
Game 2. Game 2 was the start of the Eddie Rosario legend in Atlanta. Couple big hits in that game for Rosario. Braves went with Ian that day, if I'm not mistaken, right? Ian Anderson game 2.
Ian was game 2, yeah.
Yeah, Ian Anderson game
Wait.
2 versus Scherzer. No, yeah, Scherzer, right?
Yeah, Charlie was game 2, I believe.
No, it was Charlie was game 3 because Charlie went against Walker Buehler.
Yeah, they did throw Charlie. Yeah, because we lost the game. Charlie pitched and he pitched well. We lost. Yeah, you're right.
Game 2, Ian Anderson versus Max Scherzer. Ian Anderson struggles tremendously. Like very badly, struggles. But the Braves bullpen comes in and keeps it locked up. A couple big time hits. Then the Dodgers go up 4-2 on a Chris Taylor bloop single in the 8th inning. And I know as a Braves fan, I thought, oh, here we go again. But this Braves team proves again that this team's different.
The most resilient team I've seen in any sport I've ever pulled for.
You have
and continue to explain why.
Was it Ozzie get on base first? No, Swanson got on base
Ozzie.
first. And then Rosario.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ozzie, and then Riley hits a double that scores 2 runs to tie it. 9th inning comes around, gets back to Rosario, hits a cutter extremely hard right off of Corey Seager's glove, gets through in the outfield. Braves walk it off again.
Another walk-off,
back to
back.
Atlanta.
Was that the first time it's ever happened in the playoff series? Back-to-back
I'm not
walk-offs?
sure if it's the first time it ever happened. It's very rare when it happens. I'll say that.
Maybe it's the first time it's happened in a very long time because I don't remember that happening in probably years.
The game 3 was, I'll admit, this was the only time all playoffs I truly said this series is over against Atlanta, which admittedly I shouldn't have said that, but I think it was the feeling of most Braves fans at that point. Because Atlanta sports has always been, the story of it has been you get a lead, but then you pull one mistake out and things crumble apart. Go up 5-2. Luke Jackson, who had been so dynamic all season as a reliever, gives up base hit. He gives up a homer on a pitch 7 inches over the zone that Cody Bellinger somehow cranks out of there, ties the game, and they leave in Luke Jackson again for some reason. Gives up a double, and then Mookie Betts ties it up with the new pit with Chavez in there. So you blow the game and lose 6-5 in a game that you had a 5-2 lead in the 8th inning. And on that kind of moment in Dodger Stadium, it felt like that was the moment the season was going to change.
It just felt like the tables turned. It kind of felt like a repeat of 2020 when we were up 3-1. I know at that point we were technically up to 2-0, but just felt like all the momentum completely shifted to the Dodgers.
That's where this team proved their difference, though. I think it's like this team didn't believe in momentum. Because game 3, they come out there and they shut down the Dodgers lineup with a bullpen game. Dodgers couldn't do anything in game 4. In a bullpen game, the Braves bullpen went out there and shut it down and scored just enough offense to win it.
In the playoff run that the Braves won, when we just won the World Series, we were 5-0 after a loss in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. They don't believe in momentum because every time momentum would swing the other way, they would just come back with another win. So,
then you have game 5 for Atlanta in LA. Max Fried, a hometown boy, gonna win it in game 5, and we get our butts handed to us, 11-2.
I think he may have put too much pressure on himself with that game because he's a hometown kid, LA. He invited. I heard it is along the lines of like 60 selling members off the game. Like he bought him all tickets. A bunch of people were watching that he grew up with. He known his whole life. And it goes out there and he just drops a dud. Like Max Fried just does not look like the Maxie we saw in the second half of the season with a 1.74 ERA after the All-Star break. That did not look like the same Max.
At all. It's Trey Turner on a weird play where he just got scared. And it's like, what is going on? So we get our butts kicked. And again, it feels like the season's going to flip again, especially after going up 3-1 on the Dodgers again, and they go out and they beat your butt in game 5. There's a lot of Braves fans that had the thought of last year again creeping in their heads. The game 6 comes, and Ian Anderson proves he goes 4 and 2/3 innings of good baseball. He goes 4 innings of good baseball, and that is where, when Walker Buehler was pitching on short rest and was kind of carving through the Braves lineup, it was 1-1, bottom of the fifth here in Atlanta. Wait, no, bottom of the 4th in Atlanta. Brian Snicker, after 4 innings, pulls Ian Anderson after getting d'Arnaud on a walk.
Yeah, because Ian Anderson was about to come up the pinch hit to hit as pitcher.
His turn, 2 outs, d'Arnaud on first, tie game at 1 with Walker Buehler on short rest in the going 3 2/3 already. What was your thoughts when they pinch hit Adrianza? Were you on the bandwagon for that, or were you kind of questioning why you're pulling Ian Anderson this early?
So I had mixed feelings. I got what he was doing in the moment. I probably wouldn't have had the guts to do it because I feel like 8 times out of 10 that does not pan out. Especially Adrianza, yeah, he's solid, but I wouldn't, if it was Rosario or Solaire, Cunha, Fred, if it's one of our major guys, I'd be more confident. But it was Adrianza. He's been more of a bench piece utility guy this season.
Mm-hmm.
So when he went out there, I was just like, I guess we're just gonna trust Net because he got us this far. So I gotta stop doubting him eventually. And they went out there and then.
I mean, I was kind of like you, where I was kind of in between. Like, for one, I was thinking we've got to get Buehler because he is pitching well and he's on short rest. He's gonna lose some velocity soon. You got to run his pitch count up if you can. But also, the bullpen had just went a full bullpen game in game 4, and had mostly gone a bullpen game in game 5 because Max struggled so bad they had to first put the bullpen in there for most of the game. So I was kind of against the idea at first. I'm like, why do you run your bullpen down again? But he puts him in there, puts Adrianza in there, and Adrianza hits a double down the line. Adrianza's been clutch all year. He's not, if you look at his numbers, he's been one of the better pinch hitters in the league. And comes up with a big clutch double, but it doesn't score anybody. Ron Washington puts the stop sign up for the first time in his entire life on d'Arnaud. But the reason is because you bring up Eddie Rosario, who I don't think we've really talked about Rosario as much as we probably should have right now. That whole series, he was playing out of his mind. I mean, in game 4, you have him hit 2 home runs and get a triple, a single. I mean,
I think I saw something of Rosario in that Dodgers series that he was batting, was it 560 batting average in the whole series? It was something along those lines. Yeah, I think it was 560, I believe. And yeah, I remember in that exact game where he got the triple, the 2 home runs, and the single. Everyone's like, "Oh, he just needs a double for a."
Yeah, he just needed a double for a
cycle.
Homer.
And hits a homer. And it's like, that works.
But either way, Rosario comes up, hottest hitter on the planet at the moment. And Buehler finally threw a bad pitch. And Rosario cranked it out of there. Takes a 3-1 lead. No, takes a 4-1 lead after a 3-run bomb. Snicker's decision works out, which is something that's happened a lot this whole postseason. Questionable decisions have worked out for him every single time. But from there, it's still not over. You got the Dodgers lineup that is fantastic, and the division defending champions. They're not going to give in easy. 7th inning come. No, well, first off, AJ Minter goes 3 innings of shutout baseball on the Dodgers, which was fantastic. But then it's Luke Jackson time. Same guy that in game 3 had given up the big bomb to Bellinger. comes in, double, single, double. They score a run, and it's second and third, nobody out, 4-2 game. I know for me personally, I thought the game was over at that point. I thought LA was going to win that game.
I did too.
It felt like that was the Braves' choke job. That was officially choking it away. Because in my opinion, there was no way Atlanta was winning Game 7. But then,
No, they're more.
what's up?
I'll say they're more of a Game 6 team.
Mhm.
Continue.
Then the legend of Tyler Nutsack is born. Tyler Matzik. I've been the Tyler Matzik guy from the very start. You've known that from the beginning of last year. I was high on Tyler Matzik. He goes in there, strikes out the side in a situation where if he gives up a fly ball, if he gets 3 straight outs and they're not strikeouts, it's a tie ball game. Because if he gets a ground ball and gets an out, a runner scores and a man's over to third, then a fly ball scores the runner from third, and it's a tie game. He goes out and strikes out Pujols, who had a 900 OPS against lefties this year. Strikes out Steven Souza, and he hits 99 on the gun on that pitch. And then Mookie Betts, he strikes out on 3 straight fastballs. If you can strike out Mookie Betts on 3 straight fastballs, you're in another level.
Yeah, he was definitely playing out his mind right there. I just remember watching that, and Matzik couldn't help his enthusiasm right there because he started twirling around on the mound and like pumping his fist. It's good to see for a guy that really has emerged recently.
I mean, for a guy that had the yips. I mean, he had the yips in Colorado and got out of the league for 5 years. And Walt Weiss, he used to be his manager in Colorado, kind of tells Atlanta management, go after this guy. And who would have imagined that 2 years later, he's the best reliever in the Braves system by far, and probably a top 5, top 10 reliever in the league at this point. But not only does he do that in the 7th inning, though, he goes out in the 8th inning and gets 3 straight outs against the heart of their order, which at that point, momentum had shifted all the way to Atlanta. Will Smith gets out of it. Dansby Swanson and Freddie Freeman. Braves go to the World Series.
And I remember us talking, even though, it was awesome you're going to the World Series the first time since '99. It was just great finally having that monkey off our back of actually beating the Dodgers and not choking a 3-1 lead.
Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers had beaten us in 2018, 2020, and looked like they were about to come back in 2021 too. But shuts it down there. So then World Series time comes. You got the Astros, who looked like they were dead in the water against the Red Sox, down 2-1 and losing in Game 4. And then they decide to put up 8 runs in an inning and end up sweeping the rest of the series and winning in 6 against the Red Sox. So you have the Astros, who had the best offense in the league throughout the whole season, and the playoffs just took it to another level. Coming against Atlanta, Houston has home field advantage. And of course, with the National League, American League dynamic now, since Houston had home field advantage those first 2 games, both teams get a DH. So Atlanta's able to play all 4 of their their trade deadline additions, compared to just 3 and a pinch hitter.
Which I believe almost gave Atlanta more of an advantage than did Houston, just because we were able to have all of our hot bats in one lineup at once.
I mean, the first thing, going in that NLCS, we kind of left this out. NLCS, Jorge Solaire gets COVID before the series.
Yeah, Jorge Solaire didn't play at all he didn't really play the majority of the series against the Dodgers.
And Solaire was our leadoff guy. So, but he comes back healthy enough. He's back and clears protocols, able to play was able to play Game 6 against the Dodgers, and then plays Game 1 against Houston, and leads off the game with a home run of the first time in World Series history. You lead off the World Series with a homer.
The first swing in the World Series was a home run.
It was quite the moment. And Atlanta kind of just destroyed them in that game. That was kind of a beatdown. It was never really close. It was a 1-0. It was a 5-0 win for Atlanta. Never really got close at all. It was kind of a domination. I mean, you had Morton break, but the most important, even though Atlanta won that game and the bullpen was fantastic, the only reason the bullpen had to play that much, though, Charlie Morton breaks his leg on a comebacker, pitches an inning, and gets 3 outs and no people on with a broken leg, which is insane.
And strikes out Altuve, if I'm not mistaken.
Strikes out Altuve, who was the hottest hitter, the second hottest hitter on the Astros besides Alvarez, who kind of sucked against Atlanta.
And it was the only player that hit a home run in the Astros lineup in the whole World Series.
But either way, Minter goes in there. Another 3 innings of 1-run ball for Minter. Man was fantastic for most of the playoffs. He had 1 bad game. We'll get to that. But he ended up blowing him out in game 1. Game 2 was quite the opposite. Max Fried just drops a turd again. It was weird from Max Fried to have 2 straight bad games. Albeit those 2 bad games, the second bad game was a lot of just soft contact, just getting into weird spots. I mean, like shifting Yuli Gurriel, which was stupid. Nancy Swanson dropped a easy ground ball, which was weird. Atlanta falls behind 5-1 in the second inning. Doesn't really get back into it from there. But Max Fried's able to go 5 innings to save the bullpen and starts getting a little bit of his groove back in the last 3 innings after that blow-up inning. Game 3 comes. Atlanta, they go Ian Anderson. And the team Ian Anderson goes 5 innings of shutout of no-hit ball. Minter and Jackson no-hit the next 2 innings. Matson gives up the first hit of the game to the Astros on a little bloop single. And then Will Smith gives a hit in the 9th inning, but no runs for the Astros. Two-hitter for the Astros. Braves beat them 2-0. Honestly, it was just an absolute pitching, just beauty from Atlanta. Game 4 was the game that I think decided the series, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was really nearly almost right behind home plate when that happened. It was 2-1. Is that bottom of 7th? Bottom of 7th.
Well, we got to start from the beginning there to explain the situation. I mean, game 4 and game 5 became a completely different situation for Atlanta. After the Morton injury, it meant Atlanta had to pitch back-to-back bullpen games in the World Series. Not exactly ideal.
Which, if you tell any baseball fan before the World Series, hey, you're gonna have to pitch 2 bullpen games back-to-back, do you think you're gonna win both of those? No. Or do you think you'll win 1 of 2? Probably not.
Yeah. But either way, you end up starting Dylan Lee for Atlanta, and the Astros go Zach Greinke's 37-year-old self, who actually goes 4 2/3 innings of shutout baseball and a base hit. Just, of course. Dylan Lee gives up bases loaded in the first inning. And then the most underrated star of this playoffs, in my opinion, for the Atlanta Braves was Kyle Wright. He's been a guy that's been truthfully extremely crapped on by most Braves fans. He's never been what he was hyped up to be. Obviously, a first-round pick for Atlanta from Vanderbilt, Dansby Swanson's college teammate. Kyle Wright came in and was known as the guy with the best stuff that we've taken in a long time. Let's just say he didn't look like it at the beginning of his career. But in game 4, he goes 4 2/3 inning of 1-run ball, which is a home. Well, he gives up 1 run in the first inning, but honestly, it could have been a lot worse from Atlanta. Bases loaded, 1 out. You only give up 1 run. You're pretty happy with that. And then he gives up a homer to Altuve later on in the 5th or 6th inning. But you saved that bullpen because Kyle Wright would go 4 2/3 innings, which was impressive. And then Atlanta starts the comeback. Jorge Solaire and Freddie Freeman both get on. it was Eddie Rosario was leading off that game. Eddie Rosario and Freddie Freeman both get on. Ozzie Albies strikes out. You got bases loaded. No, you got first and second with 2 outs. Austin Riley coming up. Already had a walk-off and also had the tying hit in the first 2 games of the Dodgers series, but had been struggling up to that point. Austin Riley, big base hit, scores a run, makes it 2-1. They end up walking Adam Duvall, make bases loaded, but they don't get another run out of it. But then the 7th inning comes for Atlanta.
And that's where number 7, the hometown kid, Nancy Swanson, comes up the bat and hits the ball out of the park. Not out of the park, but out and hits a home run.
And it was off of what's his name? Christian Javier, who had been dominant in the Red Sox series. This is his first appearance of the playoffs. And Christian Javier gives up the homer to Dansby to tie it. Just got out by inches.
Yeah, it got out by maybe 6 inches, if not less. And then
obviously the crowd celebrating. And then
before the crowd can even finish celebrating, Jorge Solaire comes back and hits another home run.
This is where I think that baseball why I think I love the rule of the 3-batter minimum. It makes pitchers pitch to guys that they don't want to pitch to. And it allows the team that's hitting to have a chance to get momentum back. And Javier had only pitched to his second batter in Swanson. And so he had to pitch to Solaire, and Solaire rakes another homer out of there. Almost gets caught by Jordan Alvarez, which this was another issue that happened with Houston. Had to get rid of the DH, so you had to put Alvarez out in the field. I think if Michael Brantley's out there, I think that probably gets caught. But either way, Braves up 3-2. Crowd goes crazy. Top of the 8th, Altuve gets a hold of him with 2 outs off of Jackson. Almost gets out, and Eddie Rosario, who had been clowned on the day before for blowing the no-hitter because he stopped on a ball that dropped right in front of him. He makes a spectacular catch to end the inning. And then you turn it over to Tyler Matzik and Will Smith. And this playoffs, if it ever got to Tyler Matzik and Will Smith, it was no one was scoring a run, pretty much.
Basically, yeah, the whole playoffs. If it got to those guys, you knew the night shift was going to come through and they were going to come up clutch, and nothing eventful is going to happen after that, at least for the opposing team.
Then game 5 in Atlanta, chance to win the World Series. You got another bullpen game. So you go Tucker Davidson versus Framber Valdez for the Astros. Astros have their ace. Braves have a rookie that hadn't started more than 4 games, hadn't played since June. So it doesn't sound the best in the world. But first inning, you get a grand slam off of Framber Valdez, and Atlanta goes nuts.
Yeah, that's when I was talking about earlier. That's the loudest I've ever heard at baseball stadium. It was a roar, and then the reporters shortly after said they felt like the place was going to collapse. It was so loud. And I remember I was sitting across from a guy that I became friends with, and he's just telling me he's like Adam Duvall is due for this grand slam, for a grand slam. He's like, watch Adam Duvall hit this. Less than 10 seconds later, he hits on a grand slam.
And there's Duvall's moment. We thought that's going to be it. Duvall got his moment. We're going to win the World Series. But then we realized we're in a second straight bullpen game, and we realized we're facing the best offense in all of baseball. And that lead evaporates in 2 innings. By the 3rd inning is 4-4. 5th inning, Freddie Freeman hits a 460-foot bomb to dead center. Crushed it. But then the bottom of the 5th inning comes, which was virtually the game. It's 2nd and 3rd, 2 outs, 5-4 still. AJ Minter's pitching. You feel confident with AJ Minter there. Alex Bregman coming up and you walk Alex Bregman intentionally. I personally like the decision. I don't know what you thought.
I thought it was a smart thing at the time.
I mean, it seemed like it was the right decision. You've got Martin Maldonado, who was hitting under 100 for the playoffs going into that moment. And then you have Alex Bregman, who hasn't been playing well in the playoffs, but Alex Bregman's Alex Bregman. You know he's going to get hot at some point. And you'd rather have Martin Maldonado trying to put in the tying and go-ahead runs than you do Alex Bregman. So then Maldonado comes up, bases loaded, 2 outs. And AJ Minter walks Maldonado on 5 pitches to get sent in the tying run. I think personally, I'm not blaming the umpire for that. Minter should have been a lot better and been closer to the zone on a couple of those pitches to begin with. I will say I do not like some of the umpires were very questionable all series, all postseason, I should say.
I feel like especially in the World Series, they were questionable.
Both sides too. Like it wasn't just Houston getting the call, it was both times were bad. But when Maldonado gets that close to the plate, you got to get some of those outside, right off the zone strike calls. If he's that close to the plate, it was virtually the same as if he was backed up a little bit in the zone. But Maldonado's not looking to swing at all. Minter walks him, and then Marwin Gonzalez comes to pinch hit, bloops a single in, 2-run score, 7-5. And then Brian Snitker makes a very questionable decision. He decides to go Drew Smiley instead of going to the back end of his bullpen down 2 runs. Do you think that if only 1 run scores instead of 2, that Brian Snitker goes to his big names, or do you think he still goes to Smiley and goes to game 6?
Yeah, I think if he wouldn't have given up more than just that 1, we would have more confidence that put in your big arms and see if we can try to come back in this game and finish it off in Atlanta. But maybe he's just trying to find out a day and he didn't think that he could hold him to that.
I mean, Snitker was managing knowing that he had 3 games to win 1. And you got to keep that. You got to keep some parts of that bullpen ready if you have a chance to win it in game 6 or 7. Dusty Baker was managing that your season's on the line. You got to go. In that game, ends up pitching Jose Urquidy as well, who was supposed to be the game 6 starter for Houston. Well, Houston wins game 5. Heartbreak for a lot of Braves fans, but you still have game 6 and 7. No teams won a World Series in their home field since 2013. Game 6 comes, and the Astros go Luis Garcia on short rest, and the Braves go Max Fried, who had struggled the last time out, but it looked like he had started to gather some of his momentum at the end of the game there. And then the first inning comes. First 3 batters of the Braves strike out. And first 2 batters for the Astros get on base hits and an error from Max Fried, which actually wasn't an error. It should have been called out, but baseball is annoying and won't replay easy calls to get right. But either way.
And Max Fried has ankle stepped on. That was the first inning, wasn't it?
Yeah, first inning, he gets his ankle stepped on, and it looks like it breaks. It looked ugly.
It looked absolutely disgusting. I'm shocked that he was able to go another 4 or 5 innings on that because it looked like his ankle snapped.
Yeah, I mean, what it looked like was that the Braves, just their luck, looked like Charlie Morton. Looked like they were getting another Charlie Morton situation. He gets hurt when it doesn't look like he's going to be anything. Charlie Morton gets hurt on something that doesn't look like it's going to be anything, while Max Fried looks like he breaks his ankle and he gets right back up. They check on it, looks like he's fine. But they have first and second, nobody out in the first inning. And Max Fried after the game said, I was not going to let it be like game 2 where they get soft contact and still score a bunch of runs. And the game gets out of reach. Max goes out, strikes out Carlos Correa, gets Jordan to bounce out, and then strikes out Yulta Gurriel on the fastest pitch he's thrown all season. It's like something, when he got his ankle stepped on, it's like he went to Super Saiyan mode, went to Spidey mode, whatever you want to say. Max Fried went to another level. And then from there, kind of fast forward, both teams couldn't hit in the second inning. Third inning, Atlanta, first 2 guys strike out. No, Ozzie Albies gets on. Darno strikes out. Dansby Swanson gets on, and Dansby Swanson strikes out. Eddie Rosario gets on a walk, and then Jorge Solaire, who was hitting second because Ozzie had moved on to 7 because he'd been struggling. Ozzie gets on at the 7 hole. Darno, Swanson both get out. Swanson had just missed a homer actually that inning. And then Eddie Rosario draws a walk. And then Jorge Solaire with one of the best at-bats I've ever seen in my entire life. He was down 1-2, works it back to a 3-2, fouls off about 4 pitches, and then gets the cutter in, and he absolutely nukes one. I've never seen a ball hit that far. It was 446 on the radar. I do not agree with that. I'm sorry, StatCraft is not right there. Yeah, I think because it went out, it literally left the stadium. I think because it left the stadium, just lost count because that ball ended up in a apartment party. That's where it ended up. So that makes it 3-0. The moment he hit it, Jorge Solaire is an introvert. He pimped that thing though. He was not going to let that not be pimped. That thing deserved to be pimped. And from there, Braves fans weren't confident, no more comfortable because we've seen this happen before. But I think most people believe that was the moment that kind of was the Astros giving in. Like that was it. When you hit one
for me in that game,
it's just kind of a heartbreak.
The official moment in that game where I thought it was over was when Dansby Swanson hit that 2-run shot.
The 5th, yep.
To left field.
Ozzie Albies.
And it's like, all right.
Ozzie Albies needs to be given credit for that game 6, by the way. The guy was on base 3 times after he had been so bad throughout the whole playoffs. Move him down not through the whole playoffs, through at least the postseason. Through the World Series. And they move him down to 7. And he takes advantage of the opportunity of having less pressure on him and goes out there. Great performance. And then he's on for the Jorge Solaire homer. He gets on for the Dansby homer, which that ball was nuked as well. Not quite Solaire, but it was crushed anyways. And from there, I think most people thought this game's probably over. And then Solaire draws a walk. And Freeman hits a double off the wall. Solaire comes all the way around from first to score. Make it 6-0. And from there, you turn it over the night. Max goes 6 innings scoreless, 4 hits, no walks. Turn it over the night shift. Luke Jackson, 1, 2, 3. Tyler Matthew gives up a base hit to start, but he gets the next 3. Will Smith gives up a base hit to start, gets the next 3. And the Atlanta Braves are world champions. In the 7th inning there, they left us out. 7th inning, Freddie Freeman just kind of caps off the World Series with his homer. The last actual hit for the Braves the whole game was Freddie Freeman's homer. So his last at bat of his season was a homer in the World Series, which is pretty cool for Freddie Freeman.
I just hope and pray to God that's not his last at bat in a Braves uniform.
Yeah, look, we kind of already talked about what we thought about the World Series, and we kind of went through this. Obviously, Jorge Solaire was the MVP. Freddie Freeman got his World Series he deserved. Dansby Swanson steps up in the World Series as a Georgia boy and gets the World Series. So, it's an awesome experience. Brian Snitker, his 40-plus years in the Braves organization pays off. But now it's time to look for the offseason. This is where we're going to see what the Braves do. We've had Alex Anthopoulos come out and say that he believes that it's very unlikely that anyone leaves. I find that a little bit hard to believe, but he may know what he's doing. Adam Duvall and Jock Peterson have already declined their options, but this is very common. They get a buyout and they can re-up. So, they virtually just get extra money for just saying no and then signing back. So that could possibly happen too. But so the list of free agents that we have for the Braves that are notable. Currently, your notable free agents are Freddie Freeman. That's kind of the most notable for sure. Eddie Rosario, who was the NLCS MVP. Jorge Solaire, who's the World Series MVP. Jock Peterson, who, if they had an NLDS MVP, would probably been the NLDS MVP. Guillermo Heredia, who was kind of the guy that was in the locker room all season. He was a platoon guy, but he was definitely a very important guy for the locker room perspective. Jorge Solaire specifically said that if it wasn't for him, he wouldn't have adopted the team the way he did. Adam Duvall, kind of important guy, and when the Braves let him go last year, but he has arbitration as well. So if the Braves do want him, he will be back no matter what. And then your last couple guys that are kind of important are Drew Smiley, Jesse Chavez, guys like that. So if you have to choose guys so I'm gonna have you pick 3 guys that you feel like you will guaranteeingly be back, 3 guys that you think will be back, but you're not 100% sure about, and then 2 guys you think will be gone of those 8.
So you said 3, 3, and 2?
Yeah. 3 that you think guaranteed will be back. We'll do 3 and 3 first.
The 2 guys I think are gone close to 100%. I think Drew Smiley's undoubtedly gone. I don't really see, with the emergence of a few players coming up in our pitching staff and the bullpen in general. I mean, there's some guys, like you said, Kyle Wright's definitely stepped up. Tuki Toussaint had a pretty good. I mean, if he didn't have, a passing in his family, he probably could have played a decent role here and there at some points. I mean, he's definitely improved some too. I just really think Drew Smiley's contract's pretty heavy for his contribution. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was able to eat up some innings in the World Series and then the playoffs. That kind of helped us out by saving some arms. But I don't know. I think
he's the World Series, but it wasn't. He's not. He's definitely expendable. I'll say that.
Yeah. Excuse me. I just think that we can definitely use that money we would use for Smiley on and somewhere else on the team we can use for the moment. But I think he's the number 1 guy that we could afford to let walk. And number 2, I hate to say it, but the guy with the pearls, Jock Peterson. I mean, he's gonna want more money. He's not gonna want to be a bench guy when Acuna comes back, which will be the majority of the season when he comes back in around May.
He'll be in May, he said.
What?
Acuna said he'll be back in May.
Yeah, early to mid-May-ish is kind of what's been said.
People be able to play and stuff.
Yeah. So he'd only start for maybe a month, and that's if we get the DH, which it's kind of looking like it, hopefully. But we'll see how that goes. But I feel like he wants a bigger role. He may not want a ton of more money. I know he loves Atlanta. I mean, he said Atlanta. He said today at the parade. So Atlanta, you're some bad mother effers. I mean, he's definitely bought into the culture in Atlanta. I mean, he is forever a legend in Atlanta for his half a season. Mm-hmm. If there's ever been someone to come to a team half a season and become an instant legend in that city forever, it's Jock Peterson.
Yeah.
I've never seen that many grown men. I mean, you wore pearls. I've never seen that many grown men wear pearls in the event my entire existence. So for him to have that kind of pull, it's really something. Mm. Yeah, it's definitely gonna suck to see him go, but I think he's gone. I sincerely do. Who are your 2 you think we'll get rid of?
I think Smiley's a definite buy. I think he was good for us, but when you got guys like you got Tuki, you got guys like Kyle Wright, you got a bunch of guys that can definitely eat up innings. I don't think Smiley with that $11 million contract is needed. The Braves do have a lot more income coming in, which I think is why Anthopoulos said he doesn't see anyone leaving. So honestly, I could technically actually see only Smiley being gone. I don't think that would be the case. I hate to say it. For me personally, of the guys that we got at the trade deadline, I love Jock, but he would be my one I would probably want to be gone more. He was very inconsistent, but he was a very good locker room guy. If I have to guess the guy I think will actually be gone more than likely, I hate to say it, I have a feeling it's going to be Eddie Rosario. Not because we don't love him in Atlanta, not because he doesn't love Atlanta. But I think from how he played in the whole playoffs, he was great in the World Series as well. He wasn't as good as the NLCS, but that would be extremely almost impossible to do. But what he did in the playoffs will get him a big-time deal. And I have a feeling you'll hit a team like maybe the Detroit Tigers, go out there and give him a really big deal to try to make a push at the playoffs next year. I think that might be really enticing to him. So I'll leave off of that and go into the 3 guys I think will be back. I'm not 100% sure. I would go Solaire, Duvall, and Jock. I think those 3 I think they will be back, but I'm not 100% sure about them because they all have had their moments, so they could get a bigger deal. What about you?
So this is three guys that we think will like potentially come back, like 50-50 essentially.
Maybe like 75-25, you think we'll be back?
75, yeah. I think for the one of the three, I think I would definitely go Solaire. I think there's a slight possibility he could leave because, like you said, he won the World Series MVP. I mean, he's gonna be able to get a decent paycheck, kind of like Rosario. I'll get that in a sec, but he definitely has a really good chance of going somewhere where you get more money. I mean, maybe he's just acclimated in Atlanta, which I think Atlanta's a good culture right now. They're really winning. They were winning culture before, but now they've World Series to build on, and they're just going to continue winning. And I think Solaire wants to be a part of that. But I would say there's a decent 25% chance that he could leave. And like you said, Rosario is probably due for a huge payday. I mean, I'm trying to recall what his exact batting average was, but it was definitely 3-something playoffs. Obviously, if it was 5-something in LCS in the playoffs, It was probably 400 or close
it was
to
around
that.
400, yeah.
It was got to be 400. He was, and it's crazy because if Solaire would have, I don't want anyone to have COVID, but if he never got COVID, Rosario wouldn't have been starting every day, and he wouldn't have won the NLCS MVP, which is just really crazy to think about how stuff happens. But I think he's just due for such a payday. I think that 25% chance is him leaving. But I think more than likely he'll come back. But like you said, there's some chance of him leaving. And someone that's kind of like more under the radar, who I think could potentially leave. It wouldn't kill us if he left, but it's just kind of good to have that veteran presence. Is Jesse Chavez. Like that 25% chance would be him retiring, in my opinion. But the other 75% would be him coming back to try to help out the younger guys and try to mentor them and just kind of be a solid piece in that bullpen. I mean, he was kind of one of the unsung heroes this year for Atlanta. Jesse Chavez was really. I mean, there was a lot of moments where he kind of come up big. He got to get some outs in some crucial moments. Yeah, there was times where he didn't play well, but that's like everyone. Everyone has bad days, but for the most part, he's definitely one of the most consistent bullpen guys.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's one of my three that I think are 95% or better chance to come back. The 5% I would say would be if he retires, but I feel like he kind of got to re-energize this year, kind of being that he came in midway through the year this year and was the only consistent bullpen arm he had at that point, and came in very good. He was big in the postseason as well. He wasn't just a guy that played in the regular season, but he was fantastic in the postseason, but didn't give him a run that wasn't inherited. He didn't give his own run in the whole entire postseason. So very impressive from Jesse Chavez. He's honestly gotten better throughout the year. So I would like to see him back, and I think he will be back. I think that Atlanta will definitely pay him a little bit more for him to be back. Try to convince him not to retire. I think Freddie Freeman's has like a 0.5% chance of leaving. The only way I don't see him doing is if Liberty Media gets cheap, but he's made it well known he wants to stay. He doesn't want to ever be anywhere else, and probably won't look anywhere else. He just has to hope he gets paid, and he will look somewhere else if he doesn't get paid. But I think he has the smallest chance of anybody to leave. And then Guillermo Heredia, I don't see leaving either. I think he's just the perfect fit for Atlanta when it comes to the bullpen, to the dugout, the clubhouse. He's just perfect for the team. He's been fantastic. He's been huge for the culture. He's been huge for getting guys integrated, and it's been fantastic. So I think those three are the guarantees for me.
Yeah, I think two guys I would definitely guarantee who are coming back is I think Freddie Freeman's coming back. I just seeing that parade, I feel like the players kind of Lee maybe down. I mean, Dansby Swanson and Ozzie Albies both said that we need to re-sign Freddie on that big stage in the parade on a mic right in front of close to 40,000 strong.
They could get in trouble for that, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're like, I'm making trouble for this, but we're gonna do it because we want Freddie back that desperately. And I think Freddie's coming back. I mean, he wants to spend his last 6-8 years or so, or productive years in Atlanta. I mean, this is obviously his home. I mean, he definitely has that championship he's been chasing, and now he wants to go for more. So I definitely think he's a lock. And I think Adam Duvall is a lock. I think Duval's coming back 100%. I think the only reason why, like you said, he declined his option because a lot of players do that. They'll decline. Atlanta needs to pay him more. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he led the league in RBIs last season.
He did.
Or at least the National League. He did, yeah.
Yeah, I hope you're right about Duval. I mean, I have him, but I think he will be back, but I'm not 100% sure about it. The only thing is, we thought he was almost 100% going to be back last year too, and he left. But that was on Atlanta not offering. I think it could be that they correct their mistake and says we're not doing that again. But
yeah, I think AA this offseason, I mean, he was definitely humble. He admitted to his mistakes in terms of when he didn't sign the guys back that he did. And Duval was probably the main one when he decided to go get him back. It's kind of like him admitting the actions speak louder than words of just going and getting him back. I mean, every time he played the Marlins, he absolutely killed us. I mean, I feel like I'm sure he got two home runs in a game one time. Yeah, he did.
For a while, he had more home runs against the Braves than he did have for the Braves. So, but
yeah, which is not a guy you want to face.
No, not really.
Because he was probably a little ticked that we didn't resign him, and deservingly so. So we decided to go get him back because we were tired of playing him, and we needed him. And we'll see him again next year. But yeah, one thing I just want to talk about real quick was just seeing the parade today and seeing what this championship means to Atlanta. I mean, you and I have been Braves fans for a long time, but this is the first time we've seen a championship from our baseball team, and first time a championship has been seen in Atlanta in 26 years. A major league championship, and the city did not disappoint. I mean, I know they are partying tonight, tomorrow, Friday. They're having a good time. I mean, it was ever since Tuesday. They only called off all Atlanta schools, all in the surrounding area, Cobb County, DeKalb County, Fulton. They called them all off for Friday so people go to parade. And November 4th, 2021, Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, officially announced it's Atlanta Braves Day for forever. It's November 4th, 2021. So next year, November 4th, we're going to have Atlanta Braves Day here. So,
awesome.
Hopefully that's pretty cool.
Championship at that point. So,
what was that?
Hopefully we'll repeat next year. We bring back Acuna. So, hopefully next year is a repeat. This podcast is starting to run a little bit long, but last but not least, just it's been an amazing season. Braves World Series 2021 champions. Just beautiful scenes. Awesome. Sad the season's over, but really, thankful that we won a World Series and excited for the offseason. And excited to see who we bring back, who we don't. Or if the Braves had to make a big time move somewhere else by any stretch, doubt it, but maybe they do. I mean, it's going to be a fun off season, and then next season you add Ronald Acuna midway through the year, which is just insane. So excited, and just
it was definitely a heck of a ride, and it was worth it. Every bit of struggling that entire season to come out on top. I mean, and they. Within the first 30 minutes, this just shows you how much that this championship means to Atlanta. Within the first 30 minutes, Atlanta set the record for merchandise sales of any MLB champion in Fanatics history within 30 minutes.
Wow.
Which is absolutely insane. Which is so crazy because I got a hat, a shirt, and a hoodie, and it won't be here till December.
Yeah. Yeah, I got two hats. I got 2 hats and this shirt before the World Series. And then I got 2 shirts and a hoodie after the World Series, and those things haven't even processed yet. So,
yeah, it's gonna be a little while, but that's okay.
Exciting.
That's okay because it's all worth it in the end.
Exactly. Well,
but we're looking for next year. Ronald Acuna comes back. Mike Soroka has potential to come back later in the season. Hopefully, he gets back, and Atlanta's gonna look to make another deep run. No team has repeated since the Yankees in '99 and 2000. So we'll see if Atlanta be the first.
We'll see. Well, keep an eye out on the rest of the Spicy Take Sports podcast list. We will be doing a college football podcast very soon, and so that'll be up probably tomorrow. And we'll be doing NFL probably tomorrow night, and so we can get ready for the Sunday. So until then, Peace, and go Braves.
World champs.